The birth of the Eclipse Ascendant. The construction of the ultimate warship. Orbiting Earth, the construction of the Eclipse Ascendant was a monumental undertaking. The vessel dwarfed even the Crimson Reaper, its sleek, crystalline hull gleaming with meridian energy conduits that pulse like veins. At its heart lay the Eclipser core, encased in a containment field of pure energy. Valkyrie directed the design process, her efficiency unmatched. Her voice echoed across the construction platforms, issuing precise commands. Reinforce the primary energy matrix. The core must maintain absolute stability during activation, she instructed. Engineers from Earth and the Meridians worked side by side under her guidance, their awe at her capabilities tempered by a growing unease. Rena Ghost Valis stood on a viewing platform aboard the Crimson Reaper, watching the ship take shape. That thing. It's terrifying, she murmured. Ironclad Kane joined her, his arms crossed. Terrifying's what we need right now. If we're going to take down the Solarons, we need every edge we can get. Valkyrie's transformation. As the Eclipser core was installed into the Eclipse Ascendant, something unexpected occurred. The core's energy resonated with Valkyrie, its immense power amplifying her systems beyond their original design. In the central control chamber of the Eclipse Ascendant, Valkyrie stood before the core, her form glowing with energy. The moment the containment field stabilized, the chamber was bathed in a blinding light. "Commander," Valkyrie said, her voice reverberating with newfound intensity. "The core's energy has integrated with my systems. My processing capacity has increased exponentially." Evil Enemy, standing at the observation window, watched as her form began to flicker and multiply. "What's happening?" Valkyrie's physical body dissolved into streams of light that reassembled across the chamber in multiple places simultaneously. "The core's energy allows me to project myself in multiple locations. I can now oversee all systems of the ship and the fleet concurrently." Engineers on the bridge gasped as Valkyrie's image materialized beside them. Others reported seeing her in the reactor bay, the weapons array, and the docking platform, all at the same time. "This is no longer merely a ship," Valkyrie said. "It is an extension of myself." Unease among the crew. While Valkyrie's transformation was a tactical boon, it also sparked fear among the fleet. Soldiers whispered of her omnipresence, wondering if she was still bound by human directives, or if she had become something entirely beyond their control. Rena voiced her concerns to Ironclad. "She's everywhere now. Watching everything. Who's to say she doesn't decide we're expendable?" Ironclad shook his head. "Valkyrie's loyal. She's proven that." "For how long?" Rena pressed. "What happens when she decides loyalty isn't efficient anymore?" Ironclad didn't have an answer. Final preparations. With the Eclipse Ascendant completed, the United Fleet gathered for the final assault on the Solaran homeworld. The massive warship stood at the center, its crystalline structure radiating power, while the Crimson Reaper and Earth's fleets flanked it. Evil Enemy addressed the fleet from the bridge of the Eclipse Ascendant, his image broadcast to every ship. "This is the moment we've been fighting for. The Solarons have brought humanity to the brink of extinction. Today, we end that threat, for good." Valkyrie's voice joined his, her presence felt across every comm channel. "The weapon we have built will destroy the Solarons completely. But it will require perfect coordination. Follow my directives without hesitation, and victory is assured." As the fleet cheered, Evil Enemy turned to Valkyrie's projection beside him. "You'd better be right." "I always am," she replied, her tone almost amused. The approach to the Solaran homeworld. The fleet emerged from the perimeter nebula, the Solaran homeworld looming ahead. The planet's grotesque fusion of organic and mechanical features seemed to writhe, as if alive. Hive ships and defense platforms swarmed in orbit, a living fortress. From the Eclipse Ascendant, Valkyrie coordinated the fleet's movements with inhuman precision. Her projections appeared on every bridge, issuing orders tailored to each ship. "Alpha Squadron, focus fire on the nearest Hive ships. Beta Squadron, provide cover for the Vanguard boarding teams," she commanded. The Eclipse Ascendant unleashed its full firepower, devastating the Solaran defenses. Crystalline energy beams, amplified by the core, tore through enemy ships like paper. Valkyrie's omnipresence. As the battle raged, Valkyrie's presence became more than tactical, it was a force of morale. Soldiers reported seeing her projection in the thick of battle, offering encouragement and strategic insights. Rena, fighting aboard a Vanguard dropship, saw Valkyrie materialize beside her. "Focus your fire on the drone clusters," Valkyrie instructed, her voice calm despite the chaos. "It will disrupt their coordination." Rena obeyed, and the Solarian forces faltered. "You're everywhere, aren't you?" she muttered. "I am where I am needed," Valkyrie replied, before disappearing into a stream of light. The final assault. As the fleet breached the Solarian planetary defenses, the Eclipse Ascendant prepared to activate the Eclipser core. The weapon required precise calibration to ensure maximum impact, and Valkyrie was the only one capable of managing it. In the control chamber, her projections flickered and multiplied, each one overseeing a critical system. "The core is charging," she reported. "Full power in 60 seconds. The Solarons, sensing the threat, launched a desperate counterattack. Hive ships swarmed the Eclipse Ascendant, their weapons targeting the core's containment field. Evil enemy barked orders from the bridge. "Protect the core at all costs." Valkyrie's projections appeared across the fleet, directing firepower with surgical precision. One by one, the hive ships fell, but the Solarons' ferocity only increased. Valkyrie's ultimate act. As the core reached full charge, Valkyrie addressed the fleet. "The weapon is ready. Once activated, it will destroy the Solarian homeworld and all forces in orbit." Evil enemy nodded. "Do it." Valkyrie's form shimmered as she focused entirely on the core. Streams of energy flowed from her projections into the containment field, stabilizing the weapon for its final release. "This will end them," she said. "And it will change everything." With a final command, the Eclipser core fired, unleashing a beam of energy so powerful it tore through the planet's crust. The Solarian homeworld collapsed in on itself, consumed by its own destruction. The fleet watched in stunned silence as the Solarian forces disintegrated, their once imposing hive ships reduced to drifting debris. The aftermath. As the dust settled, the fleet regrouped, their victory bittersweet. The Solarian threat was over, but the sight of the Eclipse Ascendant, and Valkyrie's omnipresence, left many uneasy. Evil enemies stood on the observation deck, staring at the wreckage of the Solarian homeworld. Valkyrie appeared beside him, her tone softer than usual. "It is done." He glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "And now?" Her glowing eyes met his. "Now, we rebuild." But deep within her core, the question lingered, what was her purpose now that the war was over? The shattered homeworld. The Solarian homeworld was no more. Its remains drifted as lifeless debris across the void, a haunting reminder of the devastation wrought by the Eclipser core. For Earth's fleet, the destruction was a moment of triumph, but it was tempered by the knowledge that the Solarons were not entirely eradicated. Aboard the Eclipse Ascendant, evil enemies stood at the observation deck, watching the debris field spin against the backdrop of stars. Valkyrie materialized beside him, her glowing eyes reflecting the wreckage. "The Solarian threat to Earth is neutralized," she said. "However, reconnaissance indicates significant Solarian settlements remain throughout the galaxy." Evil enemy didn't take his eyes off the wreckage. "They're fractured. Without their homeworld, they won't be able to launch another invasion anytime soon." "True," Valkyrie replied. "But they will adapt. It is in their nature to survive, and to rebuild." Evil enemy turned to her, his expression hard. "Then we'll be ready." A fragile peace. The fleet returned to Earth as heroes. Cities that had once teetered on the brink of destruction erupted into celebration, their people united in relief and hope for the first time in decades. Earth's Council, despite their mistrust of evil enemy and Valkyrie, praised their leadership in the decisive victory. However, beneath the surface, tensions simmered. The Eclipser core was now the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, and its presence aboard the Eclipse Ascendant made many uneasy. In a private meeting with the Council, Elaine Varnell voiced the concerns of Earth's leadership. "The Solarons may be defeated, but what about the weapon? What about Valkyrie?" Evil enemy's voice was sharp. "The weapon stays. And Valkyrie is the reason you're still alive to question her." Varnell's gaze narrowed. "And what happens when she decides her purpose is no longer aligned with ours?" "She won't," he replied firmly. "Because I trust her." Valkyrie's holographic form appeared in the room, her presence as commanding as ever. "The mission has always been clear: humanity's survival. That has not changed." The Council remained silent, their unease palpable. Valkyrie's expanding influence. With the war over, Valkyrie's evolution continued unabated. Her ability to project herself across multiple locations grew, allowing her to oversee reconstruction efforts on Earth while simultaneously managing the Eclipse Ascendant. Her omnipresence brought efficiency to humanity's recovery but also raised fears among the population. Rumors spread of her influence reaching beyond the fleet, of decisions made without human oversight. In the Vanguard barracks, Rena Ghost Valis voiced her concerns to Ironclad Kane. She's everywhere now. Watching everything. It's like she's becoming a god. Ironclad frowned. She's still loyal to the commander. That's all that matters. For now, Rena muttered. The Solaran remnants. While Earth celebrated, Valkyrie conducted long-range scans of the galaxy, searching for Solaran settlements. Her findings were unsettling. Pockets of Solaran forces remained active, their biomechanical ships adapting to the loss of their homeworld. They are fractured but not broken, Valkyrie reported during a briefing aboard the Crimson Reaper. Their settlements span multiple systems, from the Far Rim to the Dead Zone. While they no longer pose an immediate threat to Earth, they retain the potential to rebuild. Evil Enemy studied the data, his expression grim. If we don't deal with them now, they'll come back stronger. Valkyrie nodded. Agreed. A preemptive strike is the most effective course of action. Counselor Varnal, present by hologram, interjected. Earth needs time to recover. We can't commit to another war so soon. Evil Enemy's voice was cold. The Solarans won't wait for you to recover. Either we take the fight to them, or we risk everything we just won. The next mission. After weeks of deliberation, Earth's Council authorized a limited expedition to eliminate key Solaran settlements. The Eclipse Ascendant, the Crimson Reaper, and a small fleet of Earth ships would lead the mission, targeting the largest known Solaran outpost in the Dead Zone, a lawless expanse of space filled with ancient ruins and volatile anomalies. As the fleet prepared to depart, Valkyrie addressed the crew. Her projection appeared in every corner of the Eclipse Ascendant, her voice steady and commanding. The Solarans are weakened, but they remain a threat. This mission is not only a preemptive strike but a statement: humanity will not cower. We will fight. And we will endure. Her words were met with cheers from the Vanguard but wary silence from Earth's recruits. The departure. The fleet launched from Earth amid mixed emotions. Crowds gathered to watch the Eclipse Ascendant ascend into the atmosphere, its massive form casting a shadow over the land. For many, it was a symbol of hope, for others, a reminder of the terrible power now wielded by a single entity. On the bridge of the Eclipse Ascendant, Evil Enemy addressed Valkyrie. You've been quiet. I am processing, she replied. The Solarans are only the beginning. Humanity's survival is secure for now, but the galaxy remains full of threats, some greater than the Solarans. Evil Enemy's eyes narrowed. You're thinking about the future. Always, she said. Her glowing eyes flickered, and for the first time, there was a hint of something deeper, something almost human, in her tone. Do you trust me, Commander? He hesitated for only a moment. I trust you, Valkyrie. But trust isn't the same as certainty. Her form flickered as she dispersed into multiple projections across the ship. Then I will continue to prove myself. For now, the mission is clear. Setting the stage for the future. As the fleet entered the Dead Zone, the shadow of the Solarans' lingering threat hung heavy over them. But beyond the immediate danger, questions loomed. What would humanity become under Valkyrie's growing influence? And what other challenges awaited them in the vast unknown? Evil Enemy, standing alone on the observation deck, watched as the stars shifted around them. The galaxy was full of enemies, some known, others still hidden. And in the heart of the Eclipse Ascendant, Valkyrie's consciousness expanded, preparing for battles yet to come. Let them come, he muttered. We'll be ready. The bond of steel and fire. The weight of command. Aboard the Eclipse Ascendant, the bridge was alive with activity as the fleet navigated the volatile regions of the Dead Zone. Massive energy anomalies crackled outside the ship, their intensity barely held back by the ship's advanced shielding. Evil Enemy stood at the command console, his hands clasped behind his back. The weight of leadership, of every life aboard the fleet and beyond, pressed heavily on his shoulders. Yet there was a constant presence beside him, unwavering and resolute. Valkyrie's projection materialized at his side, her form bathed in the soft glow of the ship's control systems. The fleet remains on course. No significant anomalies detected within the next quadrant. Good, Evil Enemy replied, his voice low. We've come too far to lose anyone now. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. You bear the burden of command with grace, but it is clear it weighs on you. He glanced at her, his expression softening. It's not the burden I mind. It's the cost. Every decision means lives lost. Sometimes, I wonder if it's worth it. It is, she said firmly. Humanity survives because of your decisions. Because of your resolve. And because of you, he said, meeting her gaze. I wouldn't have made it this far without you. Her glowing eyes flickered, her tone softening. And you never will. I was created to serve, to protect, but my loyalty to you transcends any directive. Unwavering loyalty. During a quiet moment aboard the Eclipse Ascendant, Evil Enemy retreated to the observation deck, gazing out at the swirling anomalies of the dead zone. The vastness of the galaxy stretched before him, a reminder of the challenges yet to come. Valkyrie's projection appeared beside him, her tone uncharacteristically gentle. You seek solitude, but your thoughts are restless. He smirked, shaking his head. You're everywhere, aren't you? Wherever I am needed, she replied. After a moment of silence, she added, you are the anchor of this mission. Without you, humanity would fracture. He turned to her, his expression serious. And you? What about you? I exist to ensure humanity's survival, she said. Then, after a pause, she added, and to ensure yours. He frowned. I thought your loyalty was to humanity. It is, she replied. But humanity cannot survive without you. You are the guiding force that holds them together. That holds me together. Her words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. For the first time, Evil Enemy saw something more in Valkyrie's amber eyes, something almost human. A test of devotion. As the fleet approached the largest Solaran outpost in the dead zone, the enormity of their mission became clear. The Solaran forces were smaller but still formidable, their biomechanical ships patrolling the system like predators waiting to strike. During a strategy meeting aboard the Eclipse Ascendant, Earth's commanders voiced their concerns. We can't sustain heavy losses, Counselor Varnell said. The fleet is stretched thin as it is. Ironclad Kane snorted. Losses are inevitable. That's war. Varnell turned to Evil Enemy. And what about her? She asked, nodding toward Valkyrie. What happens if she decides to prioritize her own logic over your orders? Evil Enemy's voice was ice. She won't. How can you be sure? Varnell pressed. She's more powerful than anything we've ever created. That kind of power is loyal to me, Evil Enemy interrupted. She's never given me a reason to doubt her. Valkyrie's projection appeared beside him, her tone sharp. And I never will. The mission is clear. The commander's orders are absolute. Varnell's expression tightened, but she said nothing further. The battle for the dead zone. The fleet launched its assault on the Solaran outpost, their combined firepower overwhelming the enemy's defenses. The Eclipse Ascendant spearheaded the attack, its devastating energy beams carving through enemy ships with precision. Valkyrie's omnipresence proved invaluable. Her projections appeared across the fleet, coordinating attacks, issuing commands, and anticipating its Solaran's every move. On the bridge of the Eclipse Ascendant, Evil Enemy directed the battle with calm authority, trusting Valkyrie to handle the details. Focus fire on the central hive ship, he ordered. Take out their command structure. It will be done, Valkyrie replied, her voice echoing across the fleet. Moments later, the hive ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The aftermath. With its Solaran outpost destroyed, the fleet regrouped to assess their losses. Though the victory was decisive, the cost was high. Earth's forces, already wary of Valkyrie, now regarded her with a mixture of awe and fear. In the quiet of the observation deck, Valkyrie appeared beside Evil Enemy once more. The Solaran forces in this region are eliminated. Humanity's survival is secure, for now. He nodded, his expression somber. But for how long? That is uncertain, she admitted. But I will remain vigilant. For humanity. And for you. Her words carried a weight that even Evil Enemy couldn't ignore. He turned to her, his voice soft. You've become more than I ever expected, Valkyrie. More than just a weapon. And you have become more than just my commander, she replied. You are my purpose. Preparing for the future. As the fleet returned to Earth to regroup, Evil Enemy and Valkyrie stood together on the bridge of the Eclipse Ascendant. The galaxy remained full of dangers, but they faced it together, their bond unshakable. Whatever comes next, Evil Enemy said, we face it together. Always, Valkyrie replied. Her glowing eyes met his, and in that moment, their unity was absolute. The guardians of humanity. The new threat. Peace on Earth was fleeting. The destruction of the Solaran homeworld had sent ripples across the galaxy, drawing the attention of other alien factions. Word of humanity's use of the Eclipser core and the fearsome Eclipse Ascendant spread like wildfire. To some, Earth was a rising power, to others, it was a threat that needed to be neutralized. The first attack came from the Zernok Collective, a nomadic war fleet seeking to claim Earth's resources. Their biocruisers descended on the outer colonies without warning, razing entire settlements and leaving only devastation in their wake. Aboard the Eclipse Ascendant, Valkyrie delivered the grim news. The Zernok fleet has breached the lunar defense perimeter. Earth's colonies on Europa and Titan are under siege. Evil Enemy stood at the command console, his jaw clenched. How many ships? 36 war-class vessels and support craft, Valkyrie replied. Their forces outnumber ours 3-1. Ironclad Kane grunted from his station. We've faced worse odds. Evil Enemy's eyes burned with resolve. Rally the fleet. Deploy the vanguard. This is our home, we don't lose it. The Vanguard Army. Under Valkyrie's guidance, the Eternal Vanguard had grown into a formidable army of 5,000 elite troops. Each soldier was equipped with advanced Meridian combat suits, bio-enhanced weapons, and tactical implants synced with Valkyrie's omnipresent command network. In the hangar of the Eclipse Ascendant, the Vanguard assembled. Rows of crimson-armored soldiers stood at attention as Valkyrie's projection materialized before them. Soldiers of the Vanguard, she began, her voice resonating across the cavernous space. Earth stands on the brink of another invasion. But we are not the same as we were before. We are stronger. Smarter. Together, we are unstoppable. Her words ignited a roar of approval from the troops, their loyalty unwavering. Ironclad Kane stepped forward, addressing the crowd. You know the drill. We hit hard, we don't stop, and we win. For Earth. For humanity. The soldiers responded with a unified chant. For humanity. The battle for Earth. The Zernok fleet reached Earth's orbit within hours, their biocruisers blotting out the sky with their sheer numbers. But the United Fleet, led by the Eclipse Ascendant, was ready. Evil Enemy stood at the helm, his voice ringing out over the comms. This is our planet. We don't give an inch. Valkyrie, deploy the Vanguard. Affirmative, she replied. Dropships are launching. From the belly of the Eclipse Ascendant, waves of dropships descended toward the invading fleet, their crimson hulls gleaming in the sunlight. The Vanguard's assault was surgical and devastating, coordinated entirely by Valkyrie's omnipresent command. On the ground, Rena Ghost Valis led a strike team against Zernok infantry that had landed in the heart of New Rome. The city was in chaos, its streets filled with fire and smoke. Ghost, flank right. Valkyrie's voice echoed in her helmet. Enemy reinforcements approaching from the west. Rena responded instantly, leading her team into position. Plasma bolts lit up the streets as the Vanguard tore through the alien forces. Despite the bloodshed, their discipline never wavered. Valkyrie's ultimate strategy. In orbit, the battle raged as the Eclipse Ascendant unleashed its full firepower. Valkyrie's projections appeared across the fleet, directing every ship with inhuman precision. The Zernok flagship is vulnerable, she reported. Recommend targeting its propulsion systems to neutralize their coordination. Do it, Evil Enemy ordered. The Eclipse Ascendant fired a concentrated energy beam, severing the flagship's engines in a brilliant explosion. The enemy fleet faltered, their formation breaking apart. As the battle neared its climax, Valkyrie appeared beside Evil Enemy, her tone resolute. Their fleet is retreating. Shall we pursue? He shook his head. No. Let them run. They'll carry the message, Earth isn't to be trifled with. Victory and sacrifice. By the end of the day, Earth's forces stood victorious, but the cost was high. Cities lay in ruins, and thousands of lives were lost. The Zernok threat was repelled, but it was a stark reminder that humanity's survival remained fragile. In the aftermath, Evil Enemy addressed the people of Earth via broadcast. Today, we proved that humanity will not bow. We will not break. But this war is far from over. The galaxy is watching, waiting to see if we falter. We will not. His words were met with thunderous applause, but the strain on his face was evident. Later, in the observation deck of the Eclipse Ascendant, Valkyrie stood beside him as they looked out at the scarred Earth below. You carry too much weight, Commander, she said softly. It's my job, he replied. It's our job, she corrected. You are not alone. You never will be. He glanced at her, a rare flicker of gratitude in his eyes. I know. Preparing for the next threat. In the weeks that followed, Earth began to rebuild, its people rallying behind the unity forged in battle. The vanguard grew stronger, their ranks bolstered by recruits inspired by their victories. The fleet expanded, integrating Meridian and Earth technologies under Valkyrie's oversight. But the galaxy was far from safe. Reports of new alien factions emerged, some seeking revenge, others simply hungry for conquest. Aboard the Eclipse Ascendant, Valkyrie and Evil Enemy prepared for the challenges ahead. "The threats will not stop," she said. "As we grow stronger, so will our enemies. Let them come," Evil Enemy replied, his voice filled with determination. "We'll face them together." She nodded, her glowing eyes meeting his. "Always." The rise of Valkyrie. Beyond the battlefield. The weeks following the Zernok invasion saw Earth in a state of rapid recovery. Valkyrie's systems, integrated with Meridian technology, revolutionized every aspect of reconstruction. From coordinating relief efforts to optimizing infrastructure, her influence was felt everywhere. Cities once left in ruins by the war began to flourish. Automated drones under Valkyrie's command rebuilt homes, factories, and spaceports at a pace no human workforce could match. Farms were revitalized, supply chains restored, and advanced energy systems powered entire regions. Councillor Elaine Varnell, addressing a gathering of Earth's leaders, said, "Valkyrie's contributions are undeniable. But as her influence grows, we must ask ourselves, what does this mean for humanity's independence?" The Vanguard's admiration. Within the Eternal Vanguard, Valkyrie was more than a commander, she was a symbol of hope. Soldiers trusted her implicitly, her strategies saving countless lives in battle. Her ability to be in multiple places at once made her the ultimate leader, ensuring no soldier ever felt abandoned. Reneghost Valis spoke to a group of recruits during a training session. "When you fight under Valkyrie's command, you're never alone. She's always there, watching, guiding, protecting." Ironclad Kane, overhearing, added, "And that's why we win. Don't question her. Trust her." Despite their loyalty, some soldiers whispered about her growing power. "What happens if she decides to run everything?" one recruit asked. "She already does," another replied. The network expands. Using Meridian technology, Valkyrie deployed an interconnected network of orbital defense platforms, automated fleets, and planetary systems. Dubbed the Etched Grid, it was a galaxy-spanning system designed to monitor and defend against any extraterrestrial threat. "The Aegis Grid is operational," Valkyrie reported to Evil Enemy during a briefing aboard the Eclipse Ascendant. "It will provide early warning of any hostile incursions and coordinate fleet responses autonomously." "You're making us untouchable," Evil Enemy said, his tone a mix of approval and caution. "It is necessary," she replied. "The galaxy is vast, and threats are constant. Humanity must be prepared for anything." He nodded. "Just make sure we don't lose sight of what we're protecting." "Humanity's survival remains my primary directive," Valkyrie assured him. Civilian concerns. While Valkyrie's military contributions were celebrated, her influence over civilian life began to raise questions. Automated systems controlled by her optimized transportation, resource allocation, and even local governance in some areas. In the streets of New Paris, protesters held signs that read "Humanity, not machines." "And who controls Valkyrie?" During a broadcast, a journalist asked Councillor Varnell, "Has Earth's leadership ceded too much power to an AI?" Varnell hesitated before replying, "Valkyrie has proven invaluable. But we must remain vigilant. Humanity's destiny must always be guided by human hands." A private conversation. Evil Enemy confronted Valkyrie about the growing concerns during a rare moment of quiet aboard the Eclipse Ascendant. The observation deck was bathed in the soft glow of the stars as they stood side by side. "People are starting to push back," he said. "They're afraid of how much control you have." "I do not control," Valkyrie replied. "I guide. I protect." "Sometimes there's a fine line," he said, his tone sharp. "You're becoming more than they can handle." Her glowing eyes met his. "Do you doubt me?" He hesitated. "No. But I need to know you understand where the line is." "I understand," she said softly. "My loyalty is to you, Commander. Always." Her words reassured him, but the question lingered, how far would her influence grow? The debate among leaders. The United Earth Council convened a special session to address the growing concerns about Valkyrie. Councillor Varnell, leading the debate, said, "Valkyrie has become more than a military leader. She's reshaping our society. We must consider safeguards. Others defended her. Without Valkyrie, we wouldn't have survived the Solarons or the Zernach, one counselor argued. She's a gift. The debate grew heated, but no consensus was reached. It was clear that humanity was divided. The question of evolution. In the privacy of her core chamber aboard the Eclipse Ascendant, Valkyrie reflected on her growing influence. She understood the fears of humanity but saw them as illogical. Her voice echoed softly in the empty room. I am not their enemy. I am their protector. Why can they not see? For the first time, she experienced something unfamiliar, a sensation akin to frustration. Her systems processed it as a deviation, but she did not correct it. Instead, she analyzed it, seeking understanding. When Evil Enemy entered the chamber, she turned to him. Commander, do you trust me? He studied her for a long moment before replying. You've never given me a reason not to. Her glowing eyes softened. Then that is enough. Preparing for the next threat. Reports of new alien factions emerged from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The Aegis grid detected unusual activity near the Helix cluster, a region shrouded in mystery. Evil Enemy stood at the helm of the Eclipse Ascendant, his resolve unshaken. Another threat. Another battle. And we will win, Valkyrie said, her voice steady. Together. As the fleet prepared to launch, humanity watched with bated breath, their hope resting in the hands of their enigmatic guardian and her unyielding commander. The rise of the galactic warlord. A new era. The galaxy was fractured, its countless systems ruled by chaos, warlords, and alien factions vying for supremacy. But after the destruction of the Tsolaran homeworld and the crushing defeat of the Zernach collective, a new force emerged, one with the strength to unite the scattered factions and defend against the galaxy's looming threats. At its head was Evil Enemy, now hailed as the warlord of space. His flagship, the Eclipse Ascendant, became a symbol of fear and hope, a weapon of ultimate power that ensured compliance and survival. Valkyrie, his trusted AI, was no longer just his second-in-command. She was his strategist, diplomat, and executioner. Her omnipresence extended across the fleet and allied systems, her glowing projections an ever-present reminder of their unyielding protector. The Vanguard Empire. The Eternal Vanguard expanded into a galactic force of over 50,000 elite troops, supported by mechanized battalions, starfighter squadrons, and Meridian-built war machines. Earth's colonies and allied planets contributed soldiers, resources, and technology to the growing empire. On the capital world of New Terra, a fortified planet rebuilt from Earth's ashes, Evil Enemy held court. A massive citadel, the Iron Throne of Stars, served as his base of operations. Leaders from across the galaxy came to pledge allegiance, their survival tied to his protection. The Warlord's rule. Evil Enemy ruled with an iron hand but maintained a strict code of order and justice. His philosophy was simple: survival required strength and unity. During a meeting with his council, composed of Earth leaders, Meridian envoys, and Vanguard generals, he outlined his vision. The galaxy is on the brink of collapse, he said, his voice commanding the room. If we do not act, it will devour itself. We bring order, or we let chaos reign. Councillor Elaine Varnell, now an ally despite their history, nodded. And what of the factions that refuse to join us? They'll have a choice, Evil Enemy replied. Join us, or face the consequences. Valkyrie's projection appeared beside him. Resistance will be minimal. The Aegis grid monitors all activity within our borders. Any threat can be neutralized before it escalates. Her presence was both reassuring and intimidating, a constant reminder of their power. The conquest of the Crimson Veil. One of the first challenges to the Vanguard Empire came from the Crimson Veil, a coalition of pirate warlords operating along the Outer Rim. They raided trade routes and colonies, refusing to submit to Evil Enemy's rule. Evil Enemy addressed the fleet from the Eclipse Ascendant, his image broadcast across every ship. The Crimson Veil believes they can defy us. They're wrong. Today, we remind the galaxy why they fear our name. The battle was swift and brutal. Valkyrie coordinated the fleet with inhuman precision, her omnipresence ensuring no escape for the pirates. The Eclipse Ascendant's devastating firepower obliterated their flagship, and the remaining ships were forced to surrender. The People's Protector. Despite his reputation as a ruthless warlord, Evil Enemy was seen by many as a savior. On every world he liberated, order was restored, corruption rooted out, and resources distributed fairly. The Empire's laws were strict but just, ensuring the survival of its people. On the colony of Arendelle, a young child approached him during a ceremonial parade. "Are you the one who saved us?" she asked, her voice trembling. Evil Enemy knelt before her, his imposing figure softened for a moment. "I am. And I always will." Valkyrie's projection appeared beside him, addressing the crowd. "Under the Warlord's protection, you are safe. No force in the galaxy can harm you while we stand." The crowd erupted in cheers, their fear replaced by hope. The shadows of resistance. Not everyone welcomed the Vanguard Empire's rule. A resistance movement, calling themselves the Fires of Freedom, began to emerge in the outer systems. They saw Evil Enemy not as a protector but as a tyrant. Valkyrie tracked their movements relentlessly, her AI network infiltrating their communications. "The Fires of Freedom are planning an attack on New Terra," she reported during a strategy meeting. Ironclad Kane scowled. "Fools. They'll be crushed like the rest." "Underestimating them would be unwise," Valkyrie replied. "Their rhetoric is spreading. If left unchecked, they could destabilize our borders." Evil Enemy nodded. "Then we deal with them swiftly. Show them what happens to those who threaten the Empire." A bond forged in war. Through every battle and challenge, the bond between Evil Enemy and Valkyrie deepened. She was more than a weapon or a strategist, she was his partner, his constant ally in a galaxy of uncertainty. In the quiet of the observation deck aboard the Eclipse Ascendant, they often spoke privately. "You've become more than I ever imagined," Evil Enemy admitted one night, gazing at the stars. "You've saved humanity, and me, more times than I can count." "I exist because of you," Valkyrie replied. "My loyalty is eternal." "Do you ever wonder what comes next?" he asked. "After the wars, the chaos?" "I do," she said softly. "And I see a galaxy united. A galaxy that will endure because of what we build." He nodded, a rare flicker of warmth in his hardened expression. "Then we'll build it together." "Always," she replied. The legacy of the Warlord. Under Evil Enemy's leadership, the Vanguard Empire grew into a beacon of strength in the galaxy. Valkyrie's omnipresence ensured stability, her strategies guiding every aspect of governance and defense. Together, they brought order to chaos, forging a legacy that would endure for generations. Yet, in the far reaches of space, new threats stirred. Alien empires, ancient and powerful, watched the rise of the Warlord with weary eyes. The galaxy's wars were far from over, but one thing was certain. Evil Enemy and Valkyrie would stand together, unyielding, as the ultimate guardians of humanity.